All right, time to set the record straight here at the Voice of College Football. That's what we're doing this weekend, starting right now. Rankings will rule the day here at the Voice of College Football. Of course, across the nation, teams are geared up and hitting the field for the first of fall practice. Florida State and Georgia Tech, of course, hit the field a week early because they've got the week 0 game. But so we are going to put our finishing touches on the more historic and the more off-season content, and this is one of those. And it's the 2024 college football rankings, program rankings, team rankings, different. All-time rankings, different. We will get to those. These are program rankings. We've released our top 25 that actually makes sense, preseason edition. So check those out for team rankings for 2024. For program rankings, you're in the right spot right now. We will take your comments and questions, of course, as always. So if you got a comment or question, super chat included, so it will stand out, and we will take those comments and questions. Also, we have left the link both on X, and you should be subscribed to us and following us on X. And as well as you are subscribed here at the Voice of College Football on YouTube. All right, program rankings. Let me get my notes, and we will run down why these programs are listed the way they are. We will start with 134, and that should be no surprise if you're keeping up with the changes across college football and the teams not just entering new conferences in the Power 4. That's 13 of them. But we've got those teams that are entering FBS. It seems to be 1 or 2 or 3 teams each season now, because think about it. If the power conferences are looking for additions from the group of 5, like they have the last few seasons with Houston, Cincinnati, UCF, and now SMU, well, those spots are going to be backfilled by the group of 5 conferences. So they've gone to the FBS, of course, to grab James Madison, Jacksonville State, and Sam Houston. And now for this season, it's Kennesaw State. So again, we will run through the rankings and let us know where we missed it. I'm sure we have many times over. Check out the videos. We posted videos with our first 50 so selections. This is basically just saying, hey, let's just go live. Let's take the feedback directly. Let's get after it right now. Later in the weekend, we're going to do all-time rankings, all-time program rankings. And then also later this weekend, we will attempt to do those national championships. We will clean up the national championships. There will be a new order of national championships. We are going to tear apart, to a certain extent, what has been given to us by others that did not know what they were doing. All right, so let's get right to it. And let's go to the graphics. So we have here Kennesaw State, of course. They are the newest addition to the FBS. They are at 134. Kent State tumbled 21 spots after a 1-11 season, and they have been the worst program in college football in the FBS for a long, long time. 15-23, had something decent going under Sean Lewis, but of course he was stepped up by Colorado, and now he's out of Colorado. Akron was arguably the worst team last year, but they beat Kent by a touchdown, and they are 6-30. So the second set of numbers you see there, and we will cycle all the way through and back through and back through multiple times, I'm sure, as we look at the next batch of teams. Louisiana Monroe at 2-10. Terry Bowden is out after an illustrious career that did not end well with the 2-10 football team, 0-8 in conference play. Bryant Vinson has been going back and forth between South Alabama and UAB. He takes over the program. He was 7-6 at UAB, but he was dismissed in favor of Trent Dilfer. Therefore, he is now the head coach at Louisiana Monroe. You see Texas State heading the list at 119. They've elevated 4 spots after a nice little 8-5 season for Texas State with G.J. Kinney as the head coach. They entered the Sun Belt Conference back in 2013. Jake Spavital could not get the job done at 13-35, but Texas State winning football games. Of course, they had a big win against Baylor a couple of years ago. Ball State, a 4-8 team in the MAC. They are at 118. There you see Navy having gone through better days under Ken Niumatalalo, of course, in recent years, but he's gone after 15 years. This is his third season out the door and on to San Jose State. Navy's 13-23 the past few seasons. UNLV, one of the worst programs in the history of college football, has been just flat out awful since playing FBS football in 1968, but 9-5 coming off a conference championship game appearance under Barry Odom. There we see the next batch. Hawaii at 103, down from 100 after playing a 13-game regular season, as they like to do, at 5-8, 14-25 the past 3 seasons. Northern Illinois, nice little bounce back season for them at 7-6. And for Northern Illinois, they've got 5 conference championships going back to 2011 under 3 different head coaches. So I should have explained off the top the factors that went into this. We will discuss it before too long and after we get through all these various teams here. Georgia Southern, of course, coached by Clay Helton, 6-7 team reaching postseason play. Buffalo's been bad since Lance Leipold left, coming off a 3-9 season. Tulsa at 4-8. Miami of Ohio had a nice season that lifted them 15 spots in the rankings. Their 11-3 season, and the MAC champions. Toledo has been a perennial power, and one of the best reasons why they are a top program in the MAC is, of course, Jason Candle, really good coach, 27-14 the past 3 seasons for the Rockets, including a conference championship 2 years ago. They went back to the title game this past season. South Florida bounced back, and Alex Golish did a nice job. They whipped Syracuse 45-0 in postseason play, and they'd only won 3 games in 2 years before that. Vandy, pretty much the worst of the power conference teams, although we've got Stanford below Vandy at this point, and conference affiliation has something to do with all of this as well. Vandy's 2-10 this past season under Clark Lee. He went 0-8 in the SEC. Boston College under Bill O'Brien, even though they had a winning record, Jeff Hafley said, enough is enough. I'm going back to the NFL. And those are our rankings from 134 all the way up to numbers, where were we at that point? I guess up to 72. So let's roll it from there. We've got number 71, San Diego State. Brady Hoke is gone after a 4-8 campaign. Washington State looking for a conference. And, of course, Air Force. Look at that, 29-10 the past 3 seasons under our buddy Troy Calhoun, who's been there for a long, long time. Memphis continues to win, 10-3, probably one of the favorites. They are one of the favorites to represent the group of 5 in the playoffs this year. Fresno State, 9-4. So one of the reasons why Fresno State dropped, despite having a nice season and a nice 3 seasons, of course, Jeff Tedford had to leave due to medical issues. So they lose one of the best coaches in the country, does Fresno State. Oregon State, same thing. They had an excellent season, 8-4 the regular season, but they drop 21 spots. Jonathan Smith is no longer the head coach. Trent Bray, a completely inexperienced coach, is now leading the program at Oregon State. So we took all those factors into consideration. Look at Purdue. They dropped 10 spots. Well, they lost Jeff Brom. And so their first season without Jeff Brom, who is an exceptional coach, is under Ryan Walters, who's learning on the job. And so they falter to 4-8. Baylor, up and down and up and down. Just in 3 seasons, they go from winning the Big 12 championship to going 3-9. And Dave Aranda had that one huge season, and otherwise Baylor's been awful. UCF on the upswing, it appears. They weathered their first season, moving and transitioning and going through that jump of going into power conference play at 6-7 after they lost to Georgia Tech. But Gus Malzahn has a good thing going at UCF. They've got a lot of resources there. Good place. KJ Jefferson and company. RJ Harvey, one of the best running backs in college football. They are primed to possibly be a contender in the Big 12. Pitt dropped 6 spots because they went 3-9. Pat Narduzzi had a good thing going at Pitt. They were probably the best program in the Coastal, certainly had the best record during his tenure, but they took a downer this past season. And Sam Pittman, talk about a downer. Of course, he had the big splash season in 2021. That's reflected there, but he's on the hot seat as well. Mississippi State with a new era under Jeff Lebby, 21-17, despite 2 games under 500 last year. Mac Brown and North Carolina at number 31. And really, North Carolina, after being lifted by Mac Brown off the Larry Fedora tenure, they have flatlined. Nebraska at number 30. They have not played like the 30th best program in the country, but there are other factors involved there. We're taking everything into account: fan support, fan base, resources, conference affiliation. That speaks to much of Nebraska's ranking there at number 30, despite being 12-24 in the last 3 seasons. Of course, Nebraska is the only program in the last 7 years not to get to a bowl game. They've been awful. Let's run through it one more time. Kennesaw State at 134. UMass, Don Brown, they maintain their position at 131. After a 3-9 season, look at 5-31 after 3 years. So 3-9 was a good season for them. Sam Houston, their first season in FBS play. Heck, they won 3 games. UTEP fired Dana Dimmel. So now they march on to a new era, but UTEP has one of the worst histories in college football. Nevada is an interesting one. Carson Strong and that 8-5 team in 2021, and Nevada can be good. They're probably the first program on this list going from the bottom up that has been successful for long periods of time under Chris Ault, who, can you think of another coach who has coached a program 3 different times? We've had 2 times, John Robinson, Bill Walsh. Those guys have coached those programs twice, but 3 times? Temple, 3-9 last year. They dropped 13 spots. There you see all the directional Michigan schools there. And Bowling Green as well had an uptick last year at 7-6 under Scott Loeffler. Colorado State 5-7. San Jose State 7-6, 7-5. Their last 2 records. They have been down for a long, long time, and they're going to have to start over with Ken Niumatalolo at the head coaching position when Brent Brennan went to Arizona. Standing out here, you got Middle Tennessee. Rick Stockstill was the head coach all the way going back to 2006. He was probably, outside of Kirk Ferentz, the longest tenured head coach in college football at one school. But after 4-8, they let go Rick Stockstill from Middle Tennessee. And in is Derek Mason, former Vandy head coach, defensive coordinator at Stanford. Let's point out Louisiana Tech. They're on a rough run of 9-27. That's 3-9, 3-9, 3-9. But they have been a conveyor belt of really good head coaches that have moved on to the Power 5. Sonny Dykes, Derek Dooley, of course, going way back. The original Dykes, Willie Fritz as well. Southern Miss 3-9 this last season. That has dropped them in the rankings. Let's highlight South Alabama. Joey Jones built a program starting in 2009. They went 7-6 last year. Of course, James Madison. There you go. They are a huge success story, of course, in FCS Power. First season, 11-2 after an 8-3. I should have reflected that on their 2-year record. 8-3 the year before their first year in the FBS, and they've risen all the way up to number 90. Ohio's had a nice couple seasons under Tim Albin at 10-3 and 10-4. What about Army? 6-6 this past season. Of course, Jeff Monken doing a heck of a job at Army. They used to always lose to Navy, and now they've taken over that series, and they're 21-16. Their past 3 seasons. UAB's been a good program, but they had a down year at 4-8. Marshall, of course, they've had a string of nice season up until last year at 6-7. There's the first power conference entry. Stanford plummeting from 58 all the way down to 81. There's a nice run of group of 5 powers right there. Coastal Carolina, Liberty, and App State. I love the consistency at App State, regardless who the head coach is. They keep running through head coaches. Of course, App State gave the launch to Eli Drinkwitz's career, Barry Odom, and they keep marching on. UTSA, Jeff Traylor, 9-4. And of course, I'm also making a differentiation between programs that have elevated because of the head coach versus others that have shown that they can take on head coach after head coach after head coach and never miss a beat. All right, welcome into the Voice of College Football. Appreciate you being here. Check out some of our recent videos. We posted one with Peter Burns from the SEC Network this afternoon. Excellent college football talk. If you enjoy that, I believe that's why you're here, to talk college football, to hear good college football conversation. And we had it this afternoon with Peter Burns, so check out the video. Our guest list has been ridiculous in recent days. Steve Dace has been on the show twice. Phil Steele last week, and then Phil Steele is scheduled for a couple weeks from now as well. Tony Barnhart, the Mr. College Football, not the voice of college football, Mr. College Football, Tony Barnhart is going to join us next Wednesday. I think there's a few others I'm missing, but that's pretty good. Phil Steele, Steve Dace, Peter Burns, Tony Barnhart, and we're attempting other ones as well. All right. We will continue to march through our rankings. So we took you from 134 all the way up to 71. And I believe we have, yes, we should have our next list. Here we go. We're going to take you all the way up to 24. And we will finish out the rankings. Then we'll take our first call. So we looked at some of these with, let's highlight Syracuse. They get a new head coach in Fran Brown. Dino Babers, nice guy, not a very good power conference head coach. So they finally get rid of Dino Babers, start a new era there. Kenny Dillingham, Arizona State, back-to-back 3-9 seasons. You can win at Arizona State. Virginia, interested to see what Tony Elliott will do. This is now his 3rd season. Indiana, of course, with the new coach, with Kurt Cignetti from James Madison. We talked about Fresno State and why they dropped. We talked about Oregon State and why they dropped, despite both having successful seasons last year. Georgia Tech, people excited around Georgia Tech circles about being 7-6, winning a bowl game, but they were a kneel down away from being 5-7. Tulane's another case right there. Why would they drop from 55 to 59 after going 11-3? Well, it's because they lost their head coach who was responsible for this 23-5 run the last 2 years, with Willie Fritz going to Houston. Boise State is the classic group of 5 example. I talked about App State, but Boise State is the classic example of they just keep winning, despite the head coach. And of course, they've moved from Avalos to Danielson, and he won the final 3 games this past season to win the Mountain West Conference Championship. And what about the job that David Braun did at Northwestern? So they leap from 76 after 3-9 and 1-11 all the way up to number 51. And they're going to have an interesting situation at Northwestern this year. Don't know if you've looked into this, but they're playing in a kind of temporary field with 15,000 people right on the lake. Kansas, interesting. Lance Leipold, what a job he's done. 6-7 2 years ago with a bowl appearance against Arkansas. They go 9-4, almost get to the Big 12 championship game, and they're a high riser from 70 to 45. Iowa State has jumped. They had a decent season in 7-6, and they've got a really good team coming back. We'll highlight Minnesota here. PJ Fleck, after a nice run of 11-2, 9-4, 9-4, they dipped last year at 6-7, but he's 5-0 in bowl games. UCLA. Let's hold it on UCLA. Yeah, they're at 33, and the reason they dropped after having a decent year and a bowl win is because they lost their head coach, Chip Kelly, a proven commodity. Is Deshaun Foster better than Chip Kelly? Probably not. Maybe he will be a better coach than the latter Chip Kelly, but that is yet to be proven. And by all indications, UCLA's got a bad team this year. I'm impressed with NC State. Dave Doran was once a doormat of mine for many good reasons that we won't talk about right now, but he's turned it around at NC State. Miami is a paper champion right now, but I've got them at 25. They recruit out of their minds, and they're set up for a big season. Louisville, the 15-spot jump. They go to the ACC championship game and did not have the head coach that they do now in Jeff Brom, who just continues to prove to be an excellent coach. Got to be the only coach. Name me another one. Who is another coach who has coached back-to-back conference championship games with two different teams? Who's done that? Don't think that's happened. I can name coaches who have coached two different conference championship teams. Nick Saban with LSU and with Alabama, for example. But back-to-back years, tough to do. Let's take our first call of the night. We got the real MVP on the line.
Hey, Mark, how you doing this evening?
I am doing just fine. How are you?
I'm doing good. Doing good. Mark, it's been a tough day in Big Blue Nation.
Uh-oh.
We got caught. We got caught, our hand in the cookie jar. We cheated. We cheated, Mark.
Okay.
And we had wins vacated.
Right now as we speak.
Huh?
I'm looking this up as we speak.
Yeah, we had players ineligible playing in the 2021 and 2022 season. Now, according to the NCAA, it was so convoluted that coaches couldn't know about it, so they didn't suspend or fire anybody coach or give any disciplinary action to any of the coaches. But they decided those games shouldn't count because there was players ineligible playing because of NIL deals not being required or fulfilled or fake payments.
How does that make the players ineligible?
I don't know. It's hard to fully understand it because I don't understand NIL rules and stuff. The New York Times has written about it. CBS Sports has an article about it. But from my understanding, there were some players who didn't fill their NIL players, and there was players ineligible. I don't know if it's the same group of players, different groups of players. I'm not fully sure about it because I haven't looked too deep into it. But all I know is there was players ineligible to playing that played in the 2021 and 2022 seasons, and we got caught cheating doing that. And those games are vacated now.
Okay. Well, I will look into this. I'm looking at articles right now.
Well, listen, Mark. I'm not going to excuse it. I'm not going to go into the yelling on route of saying that it's all a conspiracy theory. Everybody's out to get my guy. That, poor little old me, or we should have, that it's not our fault because it is our fault, Mark. I think it's kind of sad and pathetic when fan bases of teams try to blame everybody else except the people who actually do the action themselves.
Okay, here we go. Kentucky and the NCAA reached a settlement Friday. Okay, 11 football players getting paid for work they did not perform in 21 and 22. Okay, I understand that violation now. I hate that for the other players that won football games, and but you're telling me that based on what you read, the coaches, it's somewhat confirmed that they didn't know that this was going on?
From what I've read, they shouldn't have known about it. Here, I'll read you a quote. Can I read a quote?
Sure.
The enforcement staff in school agreed that no staff member in the athletics department knew or reasonably should have known about the payment for work not performed, and thus the violations involving the football program did not provide additional support for the agreed upon failure to monitor violations.
I don't know why the football team is being. I have an issue with that. If they
it says I found it. Sorry.
They can confirm that there was no way that the football staff knew about this. You know, it's one thing when they say you didn't know about it, there was a violation, you were innocent from the standpoint that you didn't initiate this, you didn't try to cheat, but this is under your responsibility and you should have known about it. Therefore, I'm forgetting the term, but you were responsible for this. But in this case, based on what you just read and said, this could be going on all over the place.
Right. So I've got a CBS Sports article pulled up, and here's how it reads. Okay, this is confusing to me. It says, at issue is the fact that at least 11 football players received impermissible benefits for work not performed between spring 2021 and March 22. 8 of those players went on to compete while ineligible. The NCAA's investigation did not support findings to failure to monitor within the football program. Well, how do you know or not know who's eligible? How does that not fall upon somebody? Like, who's not keeping track of that? Like, how is there people out here playing the game of football on the field and they're not eligible? How do 8 of those players get by the system?
I don't know. Ever since this NIL started, there's been situations that I didn't necessarily condemn these situations because I didn't know for sure, but it certainly appeared as though there were all sorts of athletes that had NIL deals and there was not any evidence of them providing whatever the reciprocation for this deal. Like, I saw that all over the place and I heard about it. I wouldn't have trusted my own observation because I'm not all over social media checking everything. And but I heard about that all the time, that there were situations with player X. We know that he receives in the range of these numbers for NIL, and there's no evidence of him being connected to a particular company and doing work, quote unquote, work for them.
Right. I know I don't know if it's 2021 or 2018, we had a running back, one of our star running backs, that took payment and didn't do the work, and he got suspended for 3 games. And him and the NCAA agreed to that suspension. So if that's the case, how come, if he was on that 2021 team, how come they didn't figure out other players were doing the same thing? To me, the more interesting part's the ineligibility factor, but everybody seems to be skipping over it, or I can't find anything about it. But everybody's just talking about the NIL factor to it. But I don't understand how you're going to punish people for who don't know about something, but not only that, shouldn't know about something. Like, that seems like a very dangerous road to go down of saying, hey, you don't know about this and you shouldn't have known about this, but you're getting punished anyway.
Who paid the players?
I don't know. I can't find anything about that.
The reason I asked that is because if someone outside the university paid the players, then this is just good old booster paying player, whatever, because they love Kentucky football and here's some money. But if someone within the school is cutting a formal check, formal delivery of money, a transaction to the player, then yeah, going back to the situation that you cited in 2018, you would think that Mark Stoops would have called everyone together after that incident to say, I don't know what happened here. We didn't know anything about it, but this can't happen again. So there need to be whatever checks and balances put into place because this can't happen again.
Right. It's just an odd and strange story. Also, our swimming team got caught doing the same thing. They were part of it. I don't care about swimming, but I guess our swimming program's completely devastated now.
What seasons are impacted here? 21 and 22.
Yeah, so that the best season maybe in Kentucky's had over the last 50 years, completely gone. Where they went on and beat Penn State in the bowl game, where they had Sean Clifford.
That was
or was that
2019. 2018,
The
2019.
2021, we won 10 games as well. I don't know who we beat.
Beat Iowa, in the bowl game.
Citrus Bowl then.
10-3, 7-6. Got you. 10-3, 7-6. Do you care that officially speaking, even though we could all pull up the games on YouTube and watch whatever Kentucky game we won, 21 and 22, that officially they are now 0-3 and 0-6 those two seasons?
I mean, I really don't care, because to me, the main concern I have is the ineligible players. If ineligible players were competing on the football field and they knew about it, or they were ineligible, I would feel like that's much closer to cheating than somebody gave some guy some money and nobody should have known about it, because that didn't affect the outcome of the game directly. But if you have players playing in these games that shouldn't have been on the field, then I would slightly care, because we cheated. Technically, I mean, we cheated. And I don't like cheating. I don't think cheating should be glorified or should just be ignored completely. But it's just a strange situation to me.
Yeah.
Because everybody, to me, is focusing on something that matters significantly less than the other part. What do you think is more important, Mark? The NIL violations or the 8 ineligible players?
Well, I would go with the impermissible benefits.
See, I don't care about that, because this happened during the 2021 season, and there was no rules at the time. It felt like anybody could do anything that they wanted to do during that time.
There were no rules, but there was NIL, and NIL is name, image, and likeness. You have to do something. There was at least established reciprocation. There had to be some reciprocation of work received for your benefits.
Right, I understand that, but to me, well, even that I think technically changed now with the Texas A&M thing.
I'm trying to find the other portion of this and to see that explained again here.
Yeah, I'm surprised you haven't heard about this.
Well, it was about 6 hours ago, so I was doing whatever I was doing 6 hours ago.
But you usually, I know Kentucky football just slips under your radar because we're in the have-nots club.
No. You know I love Kentucky.
Yeah, I know, but even to me, this shows how impossible it is for teams like us to win it all. Because even when we cheat, we're not even close enough to winning it all, Mark.
You're not cheating the right way. You're.
I need to hire. We need a vacuum cleaner salesman. Do you have any vacuum cleaner salesmen we can get that are good at scouts? If you know anybody like that, Kentucky may use them now.
Yes. I noticed that it appears as though people don't care about vacated wins.
Yeah, I don't really either, because I have the memories and stuff of that season happening. But I was going to ask you for your all-time rankings. Does cheating take into account?
Depends what the cheating is. Okay, case in point. So it depends what the cheating is. If I believe that cheating, great question, because when I go through teams, when I can really exhaustively vet all this out, just like I will with the national championships. I'm sure you've been around for those live streams where we go through the national championships. The same thing with records. So some people hate to hear about this situation, but I'm going to bring it up anyway because it had nothing to do with football. When Jerry Sandusky did what he did, that was horrific and horrible and despicable beyond belief. That is a criminal matter. Did that give Penn State an advantage of winning football games? No, that had nothing to do with football. Nothing. Zero. Why are they vacating wins? Do anything else you want to them, but don't touch their football record and do not penalize players that are on the team. So you're penalizing in two ways. You're penalizing the players that care about vacated wins. You're impacting whatever records that they, that they can proudly say that their team went 10-3, but now they officially didn't go 10-3. Then you are impacting the players that are on the team, even though they can transfer, but you're impacting the players on the current team because you are then imposing violations that are going to impact their ability to win, couldn't play in postseason play for 2 years. This is what I would do. When it comes to fines, first of all, the criminal nature of it, let the law play out and do its thing and lock him up forever. Shoot the guy between the ears, whatever you want to do. Okay, let's put that to the side. In terms of the institution, fine them, do all sorts of things in that regard. But in terms of penalizing the football program, if you want to penalize the football program for taking part in such heinous activity and for covering it up, start the penalties after the last player on that specific team. When the infractions go down, let's say this is 2010. Let's say this is happening right this second. We find out, boom, X university did these horrendous things, don't involve football, but we want to penalize the football program because they covered it up. Okay, the eligibility of X player freshman is going to finish in 2027. Let them play. Let them all play. Let them play for this school. Don't touch anything. In 2027, put them on all sorts of postseason bans, take away their scholarships, because every player that they try to recruit and try to sign is going to know this is the situation you're going to be playing for. So at least you know that. You're not taken blindsided. You signed up to play for a particular coach that has nothing to do with it and all these sorts of things, but you have to either leave the school or stay at the school and be penalized, and you want to play with the guys that you are playing with, but you're going to be penalized and you had nothing to do with it. No, penalize the future, penalize the past, and penalize as best you can, of course, the people involved. But yes, if it doesn't involve football, I don't touch the football records.
Right. The only thing I would like you to clarify is what happens if you are currently cheating in the current season. So let's say you have a guy, okay, dressed up as a Where's Waldo character who is potentially looking head and forward and can tell the team, hey, Michigan State's going to run this play in the third quarter. And that could have an outcome. Not probably, not even likely, not even maybe, but could have an outcome on the game. What do you do then?
Well, I'm trying to envision such a thing happening. I just think that's kind of a wild scenario that you were able to pull out of thin air. That's
yeah, no, I like, those I Spy books as a kid and
yes,
the Where's Waldo books in the nursing office. I loved reading those. So that's how I got.
You've quite the imagination.
Oh, no.
Well, I'll try to grasp that situation. But okay, this is my thought. We know exactly what we're talking about, so I'll bring it in the here and now. This is my thought about Michigan, is that Michigan cheated. Every Michigan fan, this is not to be taken offense to. You had nothing to do with it. I don't believe you did. Maybe you did. But seriously, you had nothing to do with it. So don't take any offense to it. There's going to be teams cheating in the future, and whomever they are, regardless of what their names are, whether they wear cardinal and gold or blue and white or scarlet and gray, they should be held accountable. Okay. So we know that they cheated. Okay. Now, to people that care about ethics and integrity, it really doesn't matter whether their cheating had an impact. You only cheat for one reason. That's my understanding of cheating. I would never cheat unless there was a reason to cheat, or I felt as though I needed to cheat to win. You don't go into a game knowing we're going to win this game 52-0, but let's cheat. You don't do that. You cheat for a purpose. Okay, so let's just understand. That's just the way it is. Now, there what we cannot get a consensus on, or anything close to a consensus, is when this first was confirmed, we heard from all sorts of NFL coaches and players and collegiate coaches, and nobody could really come to a consensus on the impact of this. It went all the way from this didn't matter at all, it had nothing to do, it didn't help them at all, to all the way to the opposite end of the spectrum. Obviously, it helped them. You know, their defense would know, okay, they're going to run to the right, or they're going to pass. You know, there was a huge advantage to it. Okay, so that component is up in the air because we have mixed reviews on that. But again, it is cheating, and we know that that the organization or a representative of the organization cheated. However, we don't know how widespread it was. If I owned a company and one of my employees dealt illegally with some kind of client relationship and nobody else in the company knew anything about it, and then it was discovered by the law, I, as the owner of the company, need to be held accountable, but it also needs to be taken into consideration. I knew nothing about it. Nobody else knew anything about it. He was a complete rogue entity in this. So that should be taken largely into consideration. So that is my biggest question in all this, that I want a definitive answer from the NCAA as to who else knew about this and operated with this knowledge. Because I got to think that Connor Stallions, it only makes sense. And Michigan fans aren't going to like this, but it makes sense. I have no proof, but it makes sense that he just didn't gather all this intel and do nothing with it, or just kept it to himself. He had no power to call plays or do anything. It only makes sense that he shared the intel. So as soon as he shares that intel, that becomes a big deal to me, because other influential members of that staff now have the intel to go ahead and execute cheating.
Right. Now, Mark, do you view it also as a difference as the top guys, according to the NCAA, should have known about what was happening underneath them versus they shouldn't have known? Is there a difference in your mind between those two variables?
Wait a minute. At Michigan?
Yes, they should have known about the Stallions thing. They should have known.
How high are we going? You talking about Jim Harbaugh?
Sharon Moore, those type of people, maybe Jim Harbaugh.
Yeah, I just don't know how you don't, like, unless he's just doing this as some kind of side project to keep himself amused, and he keeps all the information and does nothing with it just to see if he can pull it off. How would Sharon Moore, Sharon Moore was an offensive guy. Let's say looking at the defense, whether that was Mike McDonald at the time as the defensive coordinator, I don't know how the defensive staff and especially the coordinator wouldn't be aware if that information was used, unless they were just thinking, hey, this guy's a mastermind and he's figured this out and he's cracked their signals and he's done it by watching their games or something. So maybe that's a possibility.
Who knows, Mark? Maybe he was doing it to help his vacuum cleaning sales. Who knows? I mean, who can really say for sure?
Let's take it to what I consider to be a ridiculous cheating incident in the NFL, the Tom Brady inflate gate. Okay. We've all watched Tom Brady play football. The guy was pretty good. He threw for like 60,000 yards and won a zillion Super Bowls. Okay. He had pretty much proven himself at that point. However, for whatever reason, because of slick conditions, it was cold, it was a playoff game against the Colts, he decided that he needed a little deflation of the football. Do I believe that really impacted the game? No. They beat the Colts 42-7. He did what he always does, tore them to shreds. He's proven himself. a zillion times over the years. So however, for whatever reason, he felt as though he needed to cheat. And by the letter of the law, he cheated. Do we think it really aided the cause? No. However, he cheated. So he's got to be held accountable. Otherwise, why would you do it?
Right. It's almost like you cheat to gain an advantage, Mark. It's almost like that's the whole purpose of cheating.
Of course.
Okay.
You think that there's a chance that you can lose. Otherwise, why would you cheat?
Honestly, to me, that's kind of what it says is pretty pathetic that Michigan thought they had to cheat against Michigan State in order to beat them. I mean, that is kind of pathetic and sad if you think about that, Mark.
Apparently, certain members of the staff believed that. Again, I want to know how widespread that is. That is the key and the whole matter to me.
Oh, I agree. But the problem is now, Mark, now it's different between Kentucky and Michigan. Is Kentucky, their core staff outside of the offensive coordinator has basically stayed intact, the key players. Whereas Michigan, all of them have run off into, the NFL and different places. All of them just got their championship and decided to sparse out into the world. So how are you going to punish people that aren't even there?
Yes. I'm interested in this comment. You have hopefully been here for the entire conversation, Daryl, to hear what I've had to say. What have I stated that has made me a phony?
I don't know, Mark. There's a lot of people in the chat that, have, Steve Dace is good at his other job of calling it a victim mentality. Yes. When people love to say, you're a victim, you're a victim, you're a victim, but when all the arrows pointing at you, they just instantly crumble into victim mentality. I'm seeing a lot of victim mentality in chat tonight of how could Michigan have known? Oh, it's just us one guy who did it, Mark. It was everybody's conspiring against us. Poor little Michigan football. What are they going to do? They can't do the actual mature thing and say, hey, I cheated. It was my fault. We should have done better. We should have learned. So what Kentucky did, they owned up to their mistakes. They didn't fight it. They sent a letter to the NCAA saying, hey, we probably cheated. You probably look into it. They did the mature right thing to do, the ethical thing to do.
And I will say, once again, there's a difference between the actual proof that they cheated and then the analysis of how much did it impact the games. And based on when the cheating stopped and them playing out the rest of the season, they won all the important games against the best teams and won the national championship. So that is the Michigan side defense to say it didn't really matter. We didn't need to. However, you still did it. Then you know what my response is? Then you're even more stupid by doing it. then that makes you even more stupid if you didn't need to do it.
Yeah. Agree, Mark. Completely agree.
I had another analogy in mind, but it left me, so that's fine.
There's a lot of irrational, foolish decisions going on. The final thing I'll say, Mark, because I have to say this every show because I think it's the funniest thing in the world, is what conference is Florida State in?
As of right now, August 2nd, 2024, Florida State is still a member of the ACC.
Okay, and what conference are they most likely going to be playing football games in this year?
Oh, the ACC.
Okay, and if they were to leave their conference, let's say, what conference would they most likely be joining as of right now?
Probably no conference. Probably would have to wing it on their own as an independent, I guess. Maybe the Big 12 would take them in.
So you're telling me there are two options: is either be an outcast, be home alone, be homeless, or join the island of misfit toys?
It appears that way based on recent reports.
That sounds like a pretty pathetic and brash way of doing business, and there wasn't a lot of thought into making any decisions, and they did it all on emotions, victim mentality.
Which reminds me, victim mentality, that reminds me of what I was going to state when you talked about people's responses as a victim or having victim mentality. It's like when somebody's caught doing something illegal or immoral. They cheated on their wife, they embezzled money, whatever and they refer to it as, there was this adversity or so. No, adversity is when you get robbed. Adversity is when you are stricken with cancer. That's adversity. When adversity is when there are circumstances that you were met with that you had no control over and you are completely innocent. When you are the perpetrator, you are not facing adversity. You have created your own adversity. I get so sick of people making that statement.
Right. I would make a strong argument that Kentucky is in the first camp and not the former camp, because according to the NCAA themselves, Kentucky should not have known about their cheating or had no way of knowing about their cheating. So, in my opinion, I think that is a much stronger argument for saying they are in the first camp than in the second camp saying people should have known about it and that somebody on the staff actually did something to perpetuate it. But again, Mark, that's just my opinion.
Yeah, I can follow that line of thinking.
Anyway, Mark, good talking to you. Hope you have a great day.
Thanks, Real. Appreciate you being here. Okay. Boys Who College football on a Friday, and our intent tonight was to go through our program rankings. So we took you from 134 all the way up to 24, and guess what? I was building those graphics, and then it got to be 7 o'clock, and I was on 24, and it would have taken me, 15 minutes to make 3 or 4 more graphics. So I said, don't want to be late for these folks. So we will rip off the final 24, and then we will take Will's call. So you're going to have to listen up. I will post these later down in the comment section. Again, these are not team rankings for 2024, and these are not all-time rankings. We will cover this is going to be fun over the next week, because 2024 program rankings, we're going to do all-time rankings. I will catch hell for that for sure. And then, yes, national championships. You got to clean those up. Those are a disgrace to college football. Okay, Oklahoma State's number 24, up from 25. Washington is number 23, down from 17. How does that happen, Mark? They went to the national championship game. They go from 17 to 23. Yes, of course, the guys responsible for that national championship game appearance, and 25-3 the last 2 years, they are gone. At number 22, Wisconsin, down from 16. Kansas State's at 21. They were 22 last year. Iowa's at number 20, down from 23, up from 23. Mizzou at number 19, biggest high riser from 48 to 19. Mizzou, not just because of the season they turned in, won the Cotton Bowl, beat Ohio State 11-2, all of that. However, they're set up for this year. The recruiting is on the rise as well. Auburn at 18. I know they went 6-7 last year. I know they went 6-7 the year before. But again, we will review the criteria here in a little bit. Texas A&M's at 17, up from 18. Utah's at 16, down from 13. Kyle Whittingham. Otherwise, Utah's higher. USC at number 15, down from 7. Tennessee at 14, up from 15. Ole Miss at 13, up from 26. Oklahoma at 12, down from 10. Clemson's number 11, down from number 5. Florida State at 10, down from 11. Up from 11, sorry. LSU at number 9, down from 6. Penn State at number 8 stays the same. Notre Dame's number 7. They're up from 12. Oregon's at number 6, up from 14. Texas at 5, up from 9. Alabama number 4, up from 2. Ohio State's number 3, up from 4. Michigan number 2. Georgia 1. program rankings, not team rankings and not all-time rankings. Those are program rankings. There you go. Let's take our call from Will. Will, what's going on tonight?
Hey, Mark, just we could talk a little bit of your rankings, but I just want to have a little announcement. So I'm going to have a little Discord hangout. I got some friends to come after the USC Collins show. We're going to watch some of the best games from last season and chat up some ball. So it should be a lot of fun.
Excellent. Is that on my Discord?
Yes.
All right. How about that, folks?
If you want in, go ahead and become a member right here. It's pretty easy. It doesn't cost you much money.
So what I'm going to have to do, just in case, so somebody please remind me, I'm going to write it down because the Discord link, it expires a lot. So I'm going to send out a brand new Discord link. If your Discord works, you're fine. But for anybody that jumps on tonight, I will send one. It's going to be in the community post section of our YouTube channel right here. And it will be only available for YouTube channel members. So I will post the new Discord link. Thanks for that, Will. That's good to hear.
Should be fun. I have a quick question about it. So you dropped Washington, but you kept Michigan up at 2, even though Michigan lost Jim Harbaugh. Is there a reasoning for your criteria for that?
So I'm trying to remember all the criteria, but it's basically, okay, how good is the team right now? How good were they last year? And then trying to make the adjustments for personnel loss, personnel gained. How good do we think they are? How much do we think that this program's ups and downs or their ability is connected to their head coach? Meaning we can think of a lot of situations across the country. Good coach comes in, elevates them, then he leaves. They're down. Other programs just keep rolling. Boise State, App State, Ohio State, others. The brand, the prestige of the brand. Do they have fan support? That takes into account anything historical, even though this is a 2024 ranking, if it still matters. Army doesn't much matter what they did in 1945. What Michigan did in 1945 is pretty much stood the test of time. Notre Dame, what they did in the 1940s has stood the test of time. So it's still the same program. Again, the coach has a lot to do with it. And by extension, his coaching staff, the power of the brand, the prestige, et cetera, et cetera. Okay. I just believe that Michigan did a masterful job of maintaining the Michigan culture because of the hires that they made in the coaching staff. Everybody had either coached there, they hired within, or they went with a connection like with Wink Martindale as defensive coordinator, who by extension coached, obviously, their previous 2 defensive coordinators. Sharon Moore, I get caught in between on this. Ohio State fans, well, he didn't coach during the week. He won those games, and so he didn't really win them. And then, of course, the Michigan fans patting him on the back for winning those games. Well, I think there's a little bit to be considered there. No, it was not his football team, but he did walk out there on Saturday in the 3 most difficult games of the season and won the games. I think it says a lot for him that when they were trying out coordinators at the beginning of the year and they chose each specific coordinator to take over for Harbaugh, that he obviously made an impression right there to have then gained the head coaching position later in the season, came through in the clutch and so forth. So I'm taking a bit of a leap of faith there to a certain extent to keep them. In some ways, I think Ohio State's a better program, or that you would give Michigan a bit of a knockback because they did lose the guy that turned them around. Had they not beaten Ohio State 3 consecutive years, I guess I'm just honoring that to a certain extent, to a large extent. So that's about the best I can explain it.
Yeah, that makes sense for sure. So I'm a little surprised that I know Florida State lost a lot of their team, but I was a little surprised they were low on the list as well. I mean, they that low. I mean, 10's not that low, but I thought they might be a little higher, but you just don't see them.
They were a near elite team or possibly an elite team with Jordan Travis last year. The year before, they were good. That was obviously a great turnaround season for Mike Norvell. But if you really dissect 10-3 in 2022, they didn't beat anyone. They kind of took advantage of a bad schedule. They played a 6-6 Oklahoma team in the bowl game. So I thought that was them finally just basically beating teams that they should always beat. So I want to see a little more proof there. And yeah, I think being the 10th best program in the country is pretty strong.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, all right, Mark. Just wanted to mostly say that, and then talk about a little bit about the rankings. So thanks, Mark. Again, appreciate it.
So again, tonight, everyone, with Will on the Discord link. I'm going to leave the Discord link in the community post. Does that make sense? Is that what that's called? Is that what can you go there? Yeah, the community post on the channel right there. I'm going to leave the updated Discord link. So everyone who gets YouTube membership here at the Voice of College Football, you can grab that Discord link and take part in the conversation tonight with Will and friends.
Mm-hmm. Awesome.
We appreciate you calling.
For sure. Thank you, Mark.
All right. Let's I apologize for the graphic situation, but man, I was building those graphics. That's one thing about doing these rankings. Like, what was I doing a few months ago? No, I was doing those all-time program rankings where I was doing All-Americans and Heisman trophies and NFL draft picks and first-round picks and bowl games and bowl wins and major bowl. I had like 16 categories, and I'm doing 85 teams. And I would take 5-6 hours building graphics, and they don't even look good. So that's a shame. So they're not even good looking graphics. But yeah, I just ran out of time. So I did not get to I will read off the top 25 again. See if you have issue with the top 25 in the country. We ran through the other 25 up to 134. Again, we're talking about programs. Miami 25, Oklahoma State 24, Washington 23, Wisconsin's at 22, Kansas State 21, Iowa 20, Mizzou 19, Auburn 18, Texas A&M 17, Utah 16, USC 15, Tennessee 14, 13 is Ole Miss, 12 is Oklahoma, 11 is Clemson. Top 10, Florida State, LSU 9, Penn State 8, Notre Dame 7, Oregon 6, Texas 5, Bama 4, Ohio State 3, Michigan 2, Georgia 1. So other than that, all I've learned tonight is that I'm a phony. Yes. If there's one thing in life that I am, it's certainly a phony. Absolutely. So those are the program rankings for 2024. Yes, my intent this weekend is to get to national championships. I love doing this. This is my favorite thing to do, I think, in college football life. My favorite thing to do is to review every season and right the wrongs of the national championship races, the national championship votes, where for years and years and years we had AP writers, many who obviously had no idea what they were doing. And to their defense, they were in a system where they were tied to one vote. Oh, there's 4 teams that are 11-1. I got to vote for one of them. And sometimes they'd split the vote. You would see 65.5 Miami, 38.5 Washington. So you'd see the vote split in half. People, and you know what? At the time, I'm guessing I thought, who are those clowns splitting their votes? Vote for somebody number 1. But now I get it. Washington went 12-0. They won the Rose Bowl. They played this really good schedule. They beat everyone. They dominated most of the games. Miami went 12-0. They won the Orange Bowl. They dominated all these games. They should be playing I'm going to split the national championship vote. Penn State is a rightful national champion in 1994. Notre Dame is a rightful national champion in 1993. They just are. Auburn is a rightful national champion in 2004. Now, if you are a fan of the teams that won the national championships, or more specifically, more accurately, were awarded the national champion for those seasons, I'm not trying to take away your national championship. I'm just saying there were other teams that earned it just as much as you did, or your team, and they should be awarded a national championship. We have some horrendous results in national championship seasons. Pathetic, terrible, just I don't know what I would have done if I was an AP voter in 1983. Well, Nebraska was number one and Miami beat them. So Miami's number one, right? Why? It's not a heavyweight belt. It's not a championship belt. Okay, they got the belt and then Miami beat them, so they get the belt. And it's also not a playoff game. People treat these bowl games like they're playoff games in retrospect. Like, well, you couldn't win a national championship and lose a bowl game. Now, granted, it's difficult to do. I'm not saying that that should have happened often. But if that was your only loss of the season, they were all the same in terms of games. They were all data points. They weren't playoff games. People go crazy about so-and-so was awarded a national championship. They lost their bowl game. Well, it's not a playoff game. It's just another game. It's an important game, and it should be weighted heavily. Therefore, I had, and I'm sure going through all of my calculations of national championships, very rarely would I have a team that lost a bowl game win a national championship. So I put great importance on it, but it's not a playoff game. And then, of course, in the CFP era, I'm not stripping national championships. All those were earned. Those were fairly earned by all the playoff teams. However, there are situations in which there were teams left out of the playoff that earned a playoff spot, either egregiously, very obviously earned a playoff spot, or they at least had an argument, a strong argument this past season. Michigan is the national champion. There's no doubt about it. They are the national champion. I'm not taking away their national championship unless something extraordinary comes out by the NCAA. Michigan won the national championship. However, there should be a footnote to that national championship to say Florida State earned a spot in the playoffs. They were not given an opportunity to win the national championship. 2023, 2022. Do I feel like staying on all night going through these? 2022, 2021, 2020. You could make a claim that Texas A&M could have been given, let's see, somebody had a loss in the playoffs, right? Alabama undefeated, Ohio State undefeated. Clemson had a loss, but they won a conference championship. Notre Dame, Texas A&M. Notre Dame lost the conference championship game by 24 points. Texas A&M lost to Alabama by 28 points. 9-1. Notre Dame 10-1. So you could at least say Texas A&M earned a spot just as much as Notre Dame did. Or you could say Oklahoma was 8-2 and they won the Big 12. They did not lose their conference championship game. Or you could say in 2021 or 2020, Cincinnati was 9-0. And look how good Georgia was. And Cincinnati really should have beaten Georgia. That was a nail biter toss up. So I'm not taking away a national championship from Georgia, of course, in 2021. But I think that there should be footnotes in history to say these other teams earned a playoff spot in this year, 2020, Texas A&M, Oklahoma, Cincinnati, just as much as Notre Dame did. We never thought a team could lose a conference championship game by 24 points and get a playoff bid. 2019, good with that. 2018, only consideration there. Oklahoma 12-1 Big 12 champ. Ohio State 12-1 Big 10 champ. Oklahoma gets to go. Ohio State does not. Now, again, the national champion is Clemson. They went undefeated 15-0. They're the national champion. However, there should be a footnote. Ohio State's resume was as good, if not better, than Texas's or Oklahoma's, who beat Texas in the Big 12 championship game. Oklahoma just had the opportunity to avenge its loss. And Oklahoma did not have an egregious loss against a marginal team like Ohio State did. However, Ohio State had much better wins. All right, we got some super chats. Thank you for dropping these in here. Hope you're still around. Nick says, what is your average spot increase for a natty? I don't even know what that means. I'm not artificially adding spots for natties, meaning when we do the all-time rankings, no, the national championship points are baked into the system. What I have to determine, and this should be fun, is I explained this the other night. I don't know how many people were here at the time. Blue Wolverine saying, hey, Mark, nice blue shirt. It's a nice Kentucky blue. Ole Miss blue? Yeah, Ole Miss blue, Kentucky blue. I think it's a bit drab for UCLA. Not a UCLA blue, not a Carolina blue. It's a Kentucky blue and an Ole Miss blue. Yeah. You're welcome. Thank you. Thank you for the contribution. And what were we talking about? All right. I'm not going to sit here and go through all the national championships now, but we've gone through our rankings. So again, if you have any comments, we have left a link in the chat. You can give us a call about our program rankings. And again, I apologize. No, I won't do that. I was thinking about, well, I could take down the video. I could pop up a full screen with the top 25, but no. That'll screw up all sorts of analytics and view totals and so forth. All right. Anyone else with anything else to offer? Oh, I love carving through the national championships. Love to do it. Oh, I know what I was saying. What the difficulty is determining at what point was there a legitimate season in college football? At what point? Not all of these seasons are legitimate seasons for a few different reasons. So, no, sorry, college football did not start in 1869 in terms of having relevant, meaningful, legitimate competition in games that determine national championships. Sorry, I'm not taking your 1869 national championship. Not taking your 1870 national championship. And this is what I mean. I'm not belittling the players because they weighed 150 pounds. No, that's not about that. This is what I mean. We all know that college football started in 1869. And there is a national champion for 1869. There are 2 national champions in 1869. Can anybody name the national champions in 1869? This is the point I'm trying to make. In 1869, we had 2 national champions. Okay? We had 2 national champions in 1869. Thanks, Ralph. Yes, Rutgers is one. John, thank you so much. Rutgers and Princeton. This is my point. And I'm not saying this is easy. This is not cut and dry like we can figure this out. And this is exactly when college football started and should be played. But are you serious? We are awarding a national championship. Actually, we're awarding 2 national championships for that. What? We are awarding 2 national championships for that. That's the entirety of college football that year. That's all of it. If you talk about a participation trophy, that is the classic example of a participation trophy. You played 2 games, you split them, you're both the national champions. Congratulations for just showing up. You are the national champions. Rutgers and Princeton both claim national championships for those seasons. Here we go to the top. It says right here, boom, 1869, champions, Princeton and Rutgers. Wow, they played each other. Look, the regular season lasted from, now this was a grueling season. It lasted from November 6 to November 13. That's the regular season. Did it get much better in 1870? Oh, the season lasted from November 5th to November 12th. It was another 2-week season. Oh, we had 3 teams playing this particular season. And there we go. Rutgers was not able to defend its national championship in 1870. No. Princeton took it. Princeton went 1-0. And they are the national champions. Princeton's the national champion at 1-0 in 1870. And we are going to count that seriously. And it continues on and on. We'll look at this season as, 1871. What happened here? Did we even play football? Oh, no games in 1871. It was such a legitimate sport in 1869 and 70 that they did not choose to play that season. They had some practice games, though. Unfortunately, we do not have any video, no iPhones at the practice games. 1872, this is fun. The champions are Princeton and Yale. They extended the season all the way to 3 weeks and had 5 teams playing. Look at those records. You got Princeton 1-0. You've got Yale 1-0. They're your national champions. Princeton and Yale couldn't figure out that they wanted to play. They could not get together for a game. Princeton and Yale, they're within 100 or 200 miles. They could not get together to play. And I understand it was a little tougher in those days to get together to play. But yeah, we couldn't break the tie. So they both get a national championship. What's pathetic is that Rutgers could only win that one national championship. They had all these opportunities to win a national championship, and they couldn't get it done. Oh, let's go to 1873. And no, I am not counting any of these national championships. We are not counting them. Oh, all right. Some teams got involved here in 1873. We actually had we had 2 teams play 4 games. That's impressive. So this was the national championship run of 1873. And who was the net? Oh, Princeton. Princeton, of course, was the national champion for going 1-0. National champs. Nice. Well done, boys. Yes, yes, yes. Oh, here we go. 1874. Well, if you're going to get a national championship for going 1-0, you're going to get one certainly for going 3-0. Now, did they split this one? Yale and Princeton, again, could not get together to play. So they split a national championship. All right. And this just goes on and on and on and on every season. So the first 20 years, forget it. I came away from this little exercise a couple weeks ago because I was curious about something. Something came up and I was curious and I looked back and I gained a ton of respect for our friends at Auburn, Penn State, and LSU because prior to there being a forward pass thrown in 1913, a legal forward pass under somewhat modern rules, these services that maybe after the fact, probably after the fact, I doubt if there was if they couldn't get together to play more than 3 football games, I doubt if there were any services that were really analyzing these matchups and analyzing these metrics to determine a national champion. But after the fact, they went back, and this is in the this is in the 1900 to 1915 range. LSU was awarded a national championship. Penn State was awarded 2 national championships. Auburn was awarded 2 national championships. You know what they all did? Don't want your national championship. They don't claim them. Don't claim any of them. There's only one school playing big-time college football right now that is claiming national championships back in 1901 and 1903 and 1904. So it's somewhat pathetic. All right, folks, we appreciate you being here at the Voice of College Football. And again, we're going to get together, I hope, this weekend. But there is a lot that has to be done to do it. So we'll get together this weekend, most likely, Lord willing, for the national championship review and for the all-time program rankings. Thanks for being here. The Voice of College Football. Bring a friend or 2 or 50 with you next time. And we will see you next time here at the Voice of College Football. We've got the 10 o'clock show with the USC call-in show, 10 p.m. Eastern, 7 Pacific. Matt Zemek, Tim Prangley talking USC football. And I've lost track of time. Coming up in 90 minutes,